The MacBook Neo is the laptop of the year. At least that's what I originally thought back when I checked it out for the first couple of weeks that it came out. Since then though, the AI bros have driven Mac prices up by quite a bit, so I guess the question now becomes, having used it for almost 3 months now, is it still a laptop of the year? Starting off with the build quality, the opinion here is mostly unchanged because it's almost always the one thing that Apple does right. Compared to a lot of sub 3,000 ringgit laptops, the all-aluminum chassis of the MacBook Neo stands out as one of the best, and with its design you can probably even fool others into thinking that it's the MacBook Air. Of course, you won't be able to fool them if you, like us, took the signature citrus colorway. It's divisive to say the least. It's just about everyone who sees my Neo either loves it or hates it. I do quite like the citrus color though, giving my life a nice pop of color amidst the wardrobe of black clothes and a desk of black and grey accessories. You can really feel the Neo's build quality when you're working away on it. The keyboard is brilliant to type on with little deck flex, and the touchpad, while unfortunately not the Force Touch trackpad, is still nice to use and responsive to touch. Speaking of touch, we took the model with Touch ID, and I think you should too, as it means never having to type in your password to unlock your laptop or when Apple needs to prove that it's you. It's also incredibly portable at just 1.23 kilos and will slot into any bag that already fits the 13-inch MacBook Air. It's not all perfect though. Cupertino certainly cut some corners on the MacBook Neo. Other than the lack of Force Touch, the keyboard here isn't backlit either, so it might be a little hard to work in the dark. Of course, none of that matters if the laptop struggles once you start working. See, the MacBook Neo comes with the Apple A18 Pro system on chip, which comes with 2 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores for a combined 6 CPU cores. The 3nm chipset also has 5 GPU cores and a 16-core neural engine, as well as 8 gigs of unified memory and up to a 512GB SSD. The A18 Pro was first seen on the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max, but those had the full 6-core GPU in them. Instead, the MacBook Neo appears to be using bin chips that didn't quite make the cut, with Apple salvaging those for the Neo. With a gimped mobile chip and only 8 gigs of memory, I think it's fair that a lot of us thought the Neo was doomed from the start. But honestly, after weeks of use, I haven't hit any stumbling blocks. Before switching back to Windows for the last couple of years, I used an M2 MacBook Air before that, and the MacBook Neo basically felt nearly identical to that M2 laptop. That's perhaps not too surprising when we take a look at synthetic benchmarks. In Cinebench, single-core performance landed almost exactly where the Apple's M2 did, which explains why everyday tasks still feel surprisingly snappy. And while I'm not too surprised the Neo handled daily computing tasks just fine, I was a little more amused to see that this little thing here managed to run some games too. It's not as good as, 10,000 ringgit gaming PC of course, but when you realize that this was originally a smartphone chip running in a fanless laptop, it does start to feel a bit like a technical marvel. As for battery life, it's just fantastic on the MacBook Neo. While it does have one of the tiniest laptop batteries I've ever seen with a 36.5 watt-hour battery, I still managed to squeeze a day and a half of work on the Neo before I finally had to reach for a power cord. One thing I do have to nitpick though is its lack of I/O. I didn't even mind it having just 2 USB-C ports, though I did have to go back to Dongle City. I'm more annoyed though by the fact that only one of these USB-C ports supports display output and is USB 3 compatible, while the other one is a standard USB 2 port. On top of that, they don't even label or color code which one is which, so quick tip, the USB-C port nearer to you is the USB 2 port by the way. Other than that though, the MacBook Neo has genuinely been a great daily driver. The 13-inch liquid retina display is decent and gets bright enough for outdoor use. While there's no P3 color, you still get sRGB color coverage here. The side-firing speakers also sound great, albeit a little tinny at max volume. Now, when the MacBook Neo originally debuted at its 2,499 ringgit starting price, it was without a doubt the best deal you can get for any laptop these days. While for 2,899 ringgit, you could have had double the storage and Touch ID too. At that price, it would have remained as our recommendation of laptop of the year had it stayed at that price tag. However, at its current price of 2,999 ringgit for the base model and 3,399 ringgit for the Touch ID configuration, the Neo is ever so slightly harder to recommend. At those prices, you're starting to run into Windows laptops that generally compete with Neo, such as the ASUS Snapdragon-powered VivoBook S series, entry-level gaming laptops, or even older MacBook Air models. That's not to say it's a bad deal, but it's just a little bit of a feel-bad moment to know that you've missed out on an incredible deal with the Neo. So is the MacBook Neo still our laptop of the year? At 2,499 ringgit, absolutely. At 2,999 ringgit, well, it's still an easy recommendation, but perhaps no longer the no-brainer choice it once was. In any case, this has been Raymond from PriceShop Malaysia. Remember to follow us for more reviews like this and let us know what you think of the MacBook Neo, especially if you snagged one before the price hikes, down in the comments below.